Good morning, everybody. This is Ann Swain from APSCo, and welcome to Question Time Live. I've got a great panel who will answer your questions, and we'll discuss what's happening to the recruitment market from their point of view in this next hour. And so I'd like to introduce you to Tania Bowers, who is the legal counsel for APSCo and a regular person here, regular panelist on these panels. I'd also like to introduce you to Mark Whitby. Mark is the non-exec director of one of our members called Human Recruit. That's a specialist player within the human resources market, focusing mainly on perm, but with a move to some kind of contract or interim roles and ambitions to move across geographical borders and expand globally. Mark's been in the market for about 34 years. I know him very well. He consults actually to other businesses from a coaching point of view and driving things forward. And it's really going to be an expert, I would say, on this panel on how to keep your staff on track and motivated, as well as utilizing marketing tools and planning of how to make sure your business is well equipped to service the needs of your client base as we move forward. I'd also like to introduce Ian Temple. Ian is the CEO of Hydrogen Group, a well-known group that actually has a number of different market specialities from moving from when it first started. It's an AIM-listed business that turns over around £170 million, placing people across 70 countries, but with an office network, again, across a number of countries. Hydrogen have 350 employees, the majority of those in the UK, but some others spread around different locations around the world. I think from Ian's point of view, I'm going to be quizzing him about what a large company is doing and how things are differing across the world, about how different governments have supported their recruitment markets and businesses generally, and what staff expectation sets are like. Ian's come very historically from a financial background, so I'm going to pick his brains on budget forecasting and looking at how he is planning and his management team are planning for hydrogen to come out of this crisis fighting and looking forward to winning on another day. So I think we've got a great group. Please send us in your questions. We do have some to start off with, but what does tend to happen on these sessions is people don't go there first of all. And then by the end, we get a huge rush of people wanting information, but maybe failing to get those answers that they've wanted. So get your questions in early. We will really try hard in this hour to cover as many as we possibly can. Why don't I get in with the first question? And actually, I'm going to aim this at Tania, because I know Tania was speaking with Bays only yesterday and has a couple of times a week discussions with the government to find out what's going on. Tania, this question is, do we have an update on when Bay's guidance on holiday will be published? I'm wondering whether your meaning, or the person's meaning here, is holiday for agency temps, and whether that's going to be given guidance to as we get close to the time frame we're going to need to use it. Tania, you're still on mute.
Yes, sorry. I should be better at this by now. Yes, the guidance is drafted. It's with ministers. Bays are quite apologetic, but it's kind of out of their hands. It's with ministers and political advisors. They're saying it should be out by the end of last week, but it's not in their gift, to be honest, I think, once it goes to the tree. But we should be expecting it. It's holiday during coronavirus. It's about holiday for employees as well as for agency workers, but it will sort of give clarity that yes, people can take holiday during furlough. And it will also give some clarity around agency workers, I expect, in particular that if their contract says that they don't accrue leave between assignments, and I'm hoping some clarity around if they're not working, then they won't accrue leave during furlough. But it is going to say it will be quite specific to how your contracts are written. So that is something that people can be looking at and applying now. But I think we are in a more comfortable place that agency workers don't necessarily accrue leave during furlough. But yeah, hopefully by the end of the week.
Yeah, Tania, there has been a real worry about this, hasn't there? For people that have agency workers that have been furloughed, which was a great success to allow that to happen, people have not been sure as to whether they should be putting aside 13% of that payment aside in order to pay accrued holiday pay. And it's been a worry, hasn't it?
Yes, and hopefully this guidance will give a bit more comfort to people if they haven't. And most furlough agreements like ours is written that if there is updated guidance, then the furlough can adjust. So, you know, you might be needing to get in contact with agency workers to confirm if your position is going to slightly change. But yes, it has been, apart from the number one question of who should I furlough out of my agency worker workforce, the second question is very much around holiday accrual and leave and pay.
Can I come back to furloughed staff, one's own staff in a recruitment company? Can you clarify, because we do get a lot of questions on this, about whether one's own staff can take holiday or should be asked to take holiday, and at what payment rate during, you know, when they've been furloughed?
In light of discussions with government, I feel quite comfortable saying that yes, people can take holiday whilst they're on furlough, and it doesn't invalidate the furlough, but they should be paid their full pay. So if you are just paying 80%, then you do need to top up to full pay for the holiday period.
Yeah, and are you getting a flavour that companies are asking staff to take a bit of their holiday whilst they've been furloughed?
Yeah, it's been a reasonably popular question on the help desk over the weeks. I think companies are concerned about ever increasing amounts of holiday accruing, and although it's helped by the fact you can carry over holiday for up to 2 leave years if people weren't able to take their holiday due to COVID-19, nonetheless, I think, yeah, it's a reasonably popular question on the help desk.
Yeah. Ian, can I come to you? Obviously with 350 staff, pretty obviously some of those are in sort of warmer climes, probably. Yeah. But if we look at the UK staff, has Hydrogen furloughed any of its staff?
Yes, no, we furloughed a number of staff across all areas of the UK business.
Okay, I can only just hear you. Might be worth turning.
Sorry, yeah, no. So we have been furloughing people and have furloughed people across the UK business, and that's been well received and understood by the vast majority of people. I think most people get it, and I would say the big advantage the UK has compared to other countries is having the furlough scheme, where in lots of other countries there aren't such good schemes available. So I think the UK government's done a good job in terms of making that available.
Yeah, I mean, we think that's worked pretty well. Mark, if I come to you, do you have any tips on how people can keep their furloughed staff engaged and feeling part of the business? Because there's definitely a lot of people that have been furloughed that are wondering whether that's just a precursor to being made redundant at the end of June. How do we keep people involved?
Absolutely. It's critical that we keep people engaged, motivated, because we want to retain that staff so that when we come out the other side of this, then we're able to get back to full productivity. So, by the way, Ann, I need to say in your introduction, you said I had 34 years experience, which I'm not quite that old. I have 23.
I was given that.
No problem.
Oh, is it? Okay, sorry.
23 years recruitment industry experience. Sorry. I think because I've trained and coached recruiters in 34 countries, that's maybe where
There you go.
You
Sorry.
got mixed up, no problem. So yes, there's lots you can do. In fact, interestingly, some of the recruitment companies I work with already had a distributed workforce model. And I think we can look to how those companies work to adapt the way that all of us need to work now, which is to continue doing everything that you were doing before with regards to running the business as closely as possible. So, you know, weekly meetings, daily stand-ups or scrums, weekly one-to-ones with all the staff, celebrating wins, you know, certainly ongoing learning and development, whether that is online or as a team. You know, leaders can certainly listen into calls with their team members, or have their team members listen into calls with the more experienced staff. And so, and even social things, I think that's the hardest thing to replicate really in this kind of climate. But even just having, you know, the CEO or other leaders organize social events with their team members where they can just have a chat really and keep in touch. I think you really can't over communicate.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Anne. I mean, we've done a lot across the business. So started by doing a daily CEO update across the whole workforce, which we record on Teams because of the international locations, and that's worked really well. Moved that on a bit from me droning on to actually interviewing people about their business and what they do. And we've done everything from in our Inspiring Business Women series that started in America and has gone to Asia, through to interviewing people around how they work directly with their clients, etc., and build their business. So that's been really popular. We've kept all furloughed people having access to email and Microsoft Teams. The only thing they haven't got access to is the database, and they're not doing client work. But yeah, L&D is crucial. I did notice that somebody has put on the chat asking whether you can force people to do L&D if they're on furlough. My view on that is if they choose not to, that's probably a very good indication of how engaged they are. And I hear Mark saying it's important for leaders to engage people. I also think it's important for right across the business for people to engage people, and our business, I'd say, is actually closer together because more people are seeing it's their responsibility to engage each other. And one of the best things I saw really early on, when the first week we furloughed people, was one of the teams, the two people on the team who were furloughed, put together a quiz for the rest of the team and invited them all to that. And apparently it was a brilliant event. So I would also say to anyone furloughed, make sure that you're doing all you can to engage the business and the other people in the business, not just expecting it to be a one-way street.
Yeah, look, I have a view that I've sort of espoused previously, that I think that every business and every individual has a bit of a brand, and that their brand will be what they want it to be at the end of this. And that might be different from when they came in. So either if they're working or if they're furloughed, or as a business, the way they treat their customers, their candidates, but also their suppliers will dictate how they are seen coming out of this, and people can make a difference. And even at APSCo, and we followed, a small number of people, but some people have really stood up and actually have shown their personality to be something even different than I thought it was beforehand, and have really grabbed it. So it's an interesting thing, isn't it? And no, you can't force anybody to do L&D, but you can offer them, and if they would like to do it, then that's a great opportunity. I might say that APSCo are giving free of charge online training courses to our members for their furlough staff, which is called Compliance Plus Recruiter, with a qualification at the end. It's free of charge. We were going to launch it at a cost, but we decided to give it away free. It's a great thing for furlough staff. So if anyone's out there that wants to have a look at that, come into the resource hub, come to the website, and you will see details about it. And as I said, it's free of charge. So let me get to some other questions. Do we think, this might be again, it's on furlough again. Tania, may I ask, do we think there'll be an extension to the furlough scheme at the end of June? This is something people are worried about. I suspect Because if people are going to make somebody redundant, then they're going to get a move on really for the middle of May, aren't they, with a 45-day process?
Yes, for large-scale redundancies, you have to go through a 45-day consultation process. So I think this is going to come to a head actually quite quickly, because the CBI certainly put the pressure on the government last time and made them extend it for a month. We've seen in the press, I think we heard on television yesterday, that Rishi Sunak is thinking about some form of extension of furlough. I think our views, and we're very happy, well, clearly would like to hear from the members on this, our view is some sort of reduction where perhaps people could work for part of the time and receive some of their salary by furlough would help business get going. I'm already talking to Bays about this and saying, you know, it's absolutely critical the recruitment industry is around to get the UK economy up and running, particularly if there's going to be a lot of contract placements, which I think everybody anticipates. And so I think some sort of scaled down furlough is likely. Personally, I think that sort of split scheme is preferable initially to just supporting certain sectors, but we possibly might also end up in a position where there is only support for certain sectors, I would imagine. But yeah, we are hoping and anticipating that there's going to be some sort of soft landing to this. Otherwise, there is just going to be a crash of redundancies, I think, at the end of June, both in our industry and across our clients, which will be really unfortunate.
I do think that's right. Certainly in speaking to members, we're finding that the preferred option for the recruitment market would be a kind of 50% furlough scenario, where you could have a staff, members of staff furloughed for only half of their time, and then in which case they get 40% of their salary paid by the government, and that you could pay them a 10% of their salary to work 2.5 days a week, or 1 week on and 1 week off. And I think for the recruitment market, that could work pretty well. Ian, from the point of view of your staff that you furlough, what kind of percentage of staff have been furloughed from the business at the moment?
In the UK, it's about a third of the UK workforce. So, yeah.
Which we're seeing 30 to 35% as the average, a mean average of what percentage. So I've been speaking to some members that haven't furloughed any, not many I might say, but haven't furloughed anybody at all, and other members that have furloughed 75% of their staff. But we're definitely finding both a mean average and a mode, I would say, would be at about 30 to 35%.
Yeah.
Do you have a plan of when you're going to bring them back, or are you waiting for guidance from the government?
We're working on our plan at the moment, basically. So we've got a weekly meeting of our sort of COVID steering group, which is really looking at how we remobilise the workforce, and we've got we're putting together our exit strategy. So I should say that we've had sort of a couple of principles we're running the business to over this period. So the first one is that we preserve as many jobs as is possible. The second principle is that we position the business well to come out of this and to bounce as well as possible. And the third one is that we act as fairly and humanely as possible for people. And so, using those principles, that's how we went into the furlough, and that's how we're planning on coming out of the furlough period. And we're busy sort of planning our sort of exit strategy at the moment. I think that now's the time where it feels like we're sort of bumping along the bottom. No one knows how long, so we're trying to use this time to get well positioned to come out of it and get our plans together.
If we look at hydrogen, what sort of percentage of the business would be contract business, compared to what percentage would be perm?
So in the UK, it's around 60% contract and 40% perm, but globally it's more perm than contract. So globally, right. More like.
Okay. So what we're seeing with our members is the perm market has been hit pretty hard. Yeah. Mark, obviously, human recruitment is really in that perm market, isn't it? How hard have you seen the HR environment and perm particularly?
Yeah, I agree. Permanent, I think, has taken the biggest hit. And so that's definitely affected us at Human, because that's 95% of our business is permanent. In other recruitment businesses that I'm an NED for, which have been more contract driven, they're weathering the storm better, I think.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I know the plan for Human is to put more people out on, in interim assignments. And of course, there is a need, isn't there, at the minute for heavy hit HR people? Maybe it's looking at how we bring people back from furlough or how we build up staff. But there must be a need for people to come in on an interim basis. Are you finding that?
That's definitely an opportunity, and I think that will be a trend, not just in our business, but in many recruitment businesses looking to pivot and think of how can we, find other revenue streams and position our business differently, different service offerings. I think interim is definitely going to be part of that mix.
Yeah, I can see it. So, Ian, from your point of view, with that mix of perm and contract, say specifically in the UK, how are you finding each of the markets are comparing with each other?
Well, we had a really tough period on the contract market at the start of the year because of IR35. So we saw a lot less contract opportunities because most of our clients were busy dealing with the IR35 situation. I think when the decision was made to sort of delay IR35 for a year, we saw some more people staying in roles that would have left if that decision hadn't been made. And with COVID happening, then I think that encouraged more people to keep those people on. I think in terms of roles, new roles coming in, I think contract is still depressed from where it's historically been for us. But the perm market has obviously taken the biggest bashing. So I think the reason people say contract's better than perm is because they've got an existing contract to put that keeps rolling on. Whether there's a lot of contract requirement at the moment, I haven't seen a massive pick up in contract requirement at the moment. I think most organisations we're talking to are still getting their plans together and working out what they're doing. They might be using some contract resource to cover gaps, but on the whole, they haven't yet got their long-term plans in place, and that's what most of our clients are working on.
And Ian, hydrogen covers so many different markets. Are you seeing any particular markets that are outperforming, or the opposite end, kind of really low-performing markets?
We've got a range of very specialist niche markets. So some of our traditional strong markets, like something like our legal market, where we're posting lawyers into law firms, historically, in recent past, have been very strong. That market's also slowed down a lot. A lot of the clients have started existing placements, often on long notice periods, and they've signed them virtually and been quite creative in what they're doing. There is some business out there, but it's definitely a lot quieter than it was. I don't think there's any real clear picture of anywhere. It's week by week at the moment, and it's actually, but that's why I think we're bumping along the bottom. I don't think there's a clear enough picture to actually say, well, anywhere's doing really well or anywhere's doing really badly. Yeah,
I mean, I do think that's right. Okay, let me come to some more questions. What's the panel's view of the length and depth of any recession that might come? Mark, do you have a view about a recession coming?
Look, I think it's inevitable that there's a recession, but I don't think anybody can predict accurately how long it's going to be. I mean, everyone in this panel, I think, survived the recession in 08, 09, and maybe even, earlier bumps in the road, early 2000s. So, I don't really have, I can't really speak to that. All I can say is, stay in the fight and really focus on being there for your employees, for your clients, for your candidates, strengthen those relationships, and try and be as relevant as possible. Even if your clients don't have job requirements, find other reasons to keep in touch so that when we do come through this, you're well positioned to, to capture not only that business, but possibly take market share as well.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you look at McKinsey reports, it's always been said that when people come out of a recession, there's a new order. The top companies may not be the top companies anymore, that there is an opportunity. And I wonder whether this is the time for the agile businesses. Or, Ian, is it the time for the big, meaty, multidiscipline companies, multi-niche businesses to do well because they can strengthen up the niches that are doing well? What do you think from a recession point of view? Any views?
No, I suppose I definitely see us as a mid-size business. It's interesting, Anne, because if you look at the shape of the market and the time I've been there, I think it's changed a lot. And there's actually not many businesses of our size left. They've either been sort of taken over or become much bigger businesses, or there's been a lot of splintering at the bottom. So the industry is almost like an hourglass shape with not many mid-size specialists like us. Well, where I'd really agree with you is that the ability to have the agility of the smaller companies, but the size and scales to do things well, and have everything from proper L&D, proper systems, all that sort of thing, puts us in a really good position. And we have to be in a place where we get the best of both worlds. Less companies in that middle, then it's a good argument that it's the worst of both worlds. I think it's very easy to be the worst of both worlds in the middle there, or get the best of both worlds. So everything we're doing is to make sure we've got the agility but also the resources to be able to put those resources where there's the most opportunity. So I do think there will be a lot of change. There's always a lot of change. My answer to how long the recession is, I think no one knows. I think the best thing about the recruitment industry is its sheer size and scope. We're in this $500 billion global market. Even if it's halved, there's $250 billion out there. No one's got massive market share. So there's a huge opportunity to go and increase your market share. But it's about how you make sure you survive, as Mark says, but also position yourself to get as much of that opportunity as possible, and keep yourself in a positive frame of mind, and therefore plan forward to what you could do and what you need to do to make sure you can do that.
Yeah. Do you think, I have a view that there's going to be a lot of startups coming toward the end of this year, of people, maybe they've been furloughed, or maybe they're working for a business that frankly is not going to survive, and think that this is the time for them to go out on their own. Mark, do you have a view about, is this a time for starting up, or is it a time to not start up?
It's definitely time for starting up. In fact, that's at Human Recruitment, that kind of is our business model. We're going to be expanding by helping people to start up their own recruitment business, essentially as a independent, self-employed recruiter under the Human umbrella. And I think that now that people are used to working independently and working from home, it's interesting because some people love it and some people hate it and can't wait to get back to the office. But there will be those who think, do you know what, I actually really like this flexible working and the balance I'm having with family and business. And so I think that's definitely a trend, that's going to continue.
Yeah. Okay, let me come back to some other questions. Let me just have a look at some of these. Okay, Tania, I think I'm going to go for you. We were turned down for the government grant as we don't pay rates as we're in serviced offices. I've read articles that the government are now changing the rules with regard to this, and we are entitled, that we might now be entitled to some money. Do you have any more information, Tania, with access to either loans or grants or opportunities for people to make a grab for some money and assistance?
I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to the specific question on whether there's specific help for money to pay rents in serviced offices. From having a quick look, rather like Katie, I can't see there is anything at the moment. I did read yesterday that their central government is sending more money out to local authorities for local authority grants, which might be what Katie might be talking about. So it's certainly worth contacting or looking on your local authority website at what help is available for what size businesses in what areas. Definitely worth having a look at local authority, because I know they have sent more money out or are sending more money out to local authorities for business. Yeah,
there is
and
the new
obviously
micro loan opportunity, isn't there?
Pardon?
There is the new opportunity for the sort of micro businesses, as it were.
I'm not sure whether the person that asked the question actually is the right size for that, because I kind of know which business she's from. But yes, yesterday there was the launch, the bounce back loan for smaller businesses, up to 25% of turnover, up to a maximum of 50,000. Very quick application process. No interest fees, repayment in the first year, and then it's 2.5% thereafter, up to 6 years. So if you are in that bracket, that does seem like quite a good deal.
Do you think people are going to be able to get hold of the money? Because we know that only 7% of our members have been able to get their hands on these CBIL loans, because the banks simply aren't kind of sharing the money around, even with a nudge from the government.
I think what's becoming apparent as well is they've just been overwhelmed by the process of the CBIL loans. I think we'll have to wait a few more days to see whether the bounce back loan scheme's launched with more success, because if what they say is true, then people should start getting money by the end of the week or the beginning of next week. Yeah. And I think it will then be in the press.
My brother is actually in a completely different industry, but he's got a small business, and he took him 4 times to apply for the loan yesterday, but he eventually got it, and he got acceptance through at 6 o'clock last night, but hasn't had any money yet. But it did go through a bit. It did seem overwhelmed, but it did get signed up. So we'll see.
I think what seems to have happened in the beginnings of that, and I kind of put it akin to a bit like buying toilet rolls en masse, that everybody went to their bank wanting to get money, hadn't done the paperwork properly, hadn't set themselves up, a number of them. The bank were overloaded and not set up properly, that the right people weren't making decisions in the bank. So I think a lot of people that went very early on simply got to departments where the computer said no, as it were, and that needed to step back and then try again, perhaps in a different way, or even sometimes in the same way. But I do think if someone needs to try 4 times before they get the money, the system needs to change. And I know companies that have been turned down for small business loans that would have been 100% guaranteed by the government, but then offered by the same person in the same breath an overdraft of exactly the same amount of money, but with sky-high interest rates. And something seems very wrong to me with that. I understand also that some of these bank loans have been quite difficult for people to get if they've been going through second round funding, and therefore their accounts don't look that ideal, and that it can be that some of the European legislation means that they can't get themselves funding. And it was done in a hurry, and it looks like legislation done in a hurry, or a cunning plan that wasn't quite as cunningly worked out, actually. But it's good to hear if people can get access to money. We'll try and find out for Katie with regard to the rate scenario when you're in service office, is because we know that a lot of our members are in serviced offices, more than ever before, actually. So let's see if we can find that out. Let me ask you another question, Tania. I have a number of staff who do the same job and they're on furlough. If I want to unfurlough one of them, do I need to consider the terms of choosing which one and adhering to any discrimination things? How can I unfurlough some and not others without looking that I'm behaving in an inappropriate way? Tania?
With my legal head on, I mean, I think it's about being objective. It's about having, you know, writing down, thinking about who you need back, why you, what skills they need to have, what do you need them to do, being objective, bearing in mind people's personal situations, particularly if there are discrimination issues, potential discrimination issues, but insofar as possible, just being objective in your decision making, and then really trying to communicate as well as you can, and, you know, possibly letting people share, depending how long furlough goes on, but you could swap people in and out, because we know that some people are, you know, do feel a bit isolated and left out on furlough, whereas others might be very happy.
Yeah, and obviously if you're pushing people in and out, minimum time frame for furlough is 3 weeks, isn't it? So not to juggle too much, just to make sure that someone has at least 3 weeks. It's classic, isn't it? Communication seems to be the key, as it is with all of these things. Mark, you're a specialist in that communication and building up teams and coaching them to success. Do you have any view on how to communicate with people, making sure they're not feeling isolated at these times, or not feeling resentful that someone else is brought back from furlough?
Look, a lot of it is how you frame things, of course, but ultimately, as Ian said earlier, you know, the mindset of the individuals as well is critical, that they are understanding that we're doing our best as business owners, as leaders, to keep them in a job, right? And that the decisions that we're taking are in order for the business to come through this, so that they have future opportunities with the business. So I think if people are too resentful, then to me, that's the wrong attitude for them to adopt. And then that makes me wonder, is this the sort of person that should be a long-term part of our team? You know, I want to hire and surround myself with people who are positive, who are self-motivated, and who are, you know, not just thinking of themselves, but as of their team members and so on. So I think there is only so much you can do as a leader, and it is to do with communication and making people feel valued, making sure they have opportunities for L&D and social things and so on. But ultimately, there is only so much you can do.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think all of us would love to have 100% of our staff that are self-motivated, fully on it. But you do have people that have insecurities, maybe from a background where they've been made redundant numerous times. And it is quite difficult. It's not a one message turns everybody on in the same way. It's about horses for courses, isn't it? Ian, are you finding that, having done your daily and now 3 times a week, daily must be difficult to find something to talk about, I think, but, you know, having done all of that, are you finding that your management team are having to look after some people more than others, just because of personalities and backgrounds and coming from things at a different angle?
Yeah, no, definitely, and you know, I think it is all about having the right conversations and knowing those people, isn't it? And understanding. I think there's a massive opportunity to engage those people over this situation, and help them learn and develop. I mean, yeah, people as old as me has obviously been through a lot of these crises and come out the other side, and you realise when you come through them that it does make you more resilient. So quite a lot of what I've been talking about on my updates has been, certainly in the early days of COVID, was around how to manage yourself and position yourself as well as possible during that. And, you know, I've been fortunate enough to be coached in the past, in like the financial crisis, through and what got people through the Japanese prisoner of war camps and things like that. And it's really interesting, the psychology of what you can do. So we've really encouraged people to do those sorts of things. We've got Strava groups going, we've got book clubs going, we've got all sorts of things that different people can engage in, that different people want to be in part in. I noticed that one of the comments was that they were advised not to turn email off, and we were advised to turn email and Microsoft Teams off, otherwise people might be deemed to be working. And I just thought that was actually morally indefensible to do that, because you're just cutting people off from their purpose and their life. And they, you know, I'm quite happy to go to court, tribunal, or whatever, to fight that it's not right just to cut people off because they've been furloughed. And I don't think that's what the scheme was designed for. I don't think that's the government's intention. But yeah, as always, no disrespect, Tania, the lawyers were being very cautious on, you know, oh, you might get in trouble for that or whatever. But I think you've just got to take a stance on that and say that that is going to give people mental health problems if you just cut them off and kick them out. So I'd rather take the risk on that personally. So I think it's about trying to be as much common sense and sensibility as possible, isn't it? And keep explaining to people you're trying to treat them right. But some people have taken offence and will take offence. I've noticed those people are coming through the other side now and starting to realise that, you know, 6 million people in the country are getting paid by the government at the moment through furlough, and therefore it's not a personal thing. And everyone knows somebody who's taken pain, and we've cut pay and things like that too across the business, and so everyone knows that people are taking pain. So it's not a personal thing, and that's the message we've been trying to get across to people.
Yeah, I think it's right. Let me come to some more questions. I put my first claim for the HMRC job retention scheme on the 20th of April. When can I put in my claim for the May payment? Tania?
The rules are you put the claim in at the same time or immediately after you run the payroll. So it really depends when you run your payroll in May. What I would say though is be very careful, because you only have one go. And so if you've got multiple payrolls but on the same UTR, I think you have to make just one claim. So it's almost worth revisiting those how to gov.uk guides about how to claim furlough before you do it again, because obviously this is all very new to people. But HMRC are aware that if you get it wrong, it's like bad luck. They're kind of aware that that's not right, and they're looking at ways of allowing people to go back in. But at the moment, the way the scheme works is you only have one chance. You have to get it right. So yeah, the timing is on or around the time you run the payroll.
And so if somebody wanted to query a bit more detail in that, could they ring the APSCo legal helpline?
Yes, and then I think the guidance is on the hub as well, but there's actually a really quite easy to read gov.uk guidance that takes you step by step through making the claim.
Okay, let me come on to another one. Again, it's on furlough. Are we able to furlough employees that we made redundant just before furlough was actually introduced in March, even though we now have made our first claim for April, if these employees were not on that original claim? Can you claim for people that you didn't claim on?
From my recollection of the guidance, yes, you can't go back. So if you've made a claim for April, you can't go back and make a new claim for April. If they were on the RTI return, it sounds like they were probably on the RTI return on the 28th of February, or I think now with the new rules, it could be as late as the 19th of March, then you'd have to re-employ them. You have to put them back on the payroll. Right. So then it's a matter of going forward. So you could claim from the date you put them back on the payroll on furlough going forwards, but you wouldn't be able to claim back. Okay.
All right, let me ask another question. It's a similar furlough scenario, but more in depth really about how people are feeling. I have one or two staff that feel rejected by being furloughed and questioned why them and not others. Ours are invited to socials and one-to-ones, but opt not to attend. What tactics or advice would you give them to get them motivated to come back and be positive rather than negative, and positive rather than disengaged. Mark, how can you make people, what specifically do you think that people could be doing that make people feel a bit more involved in a business, even if they've been furloughed?
Well, first of all, as we know, you can't make people do anything or feel anything, right? But you can certainly give them opportunities. And look, I'm evangelical about coaching. It's something which I've benefited from. Ian has mentioned he's benefited from it. I think we all need coaching. And so if we can be there as coaches for our team members, then that's huge. But you know, they have to be open to it and willing to participate in it. Ian used the word resilient earlier, which I think is critical. That, you know, if anything, this is the biggest test to our resilience that many people have had in their career, and resilience is, I would say, the most important quality to be successful in recruiting. So, are the team members willing to embrace this as an opportunity to practice, develop that resilience? You can't make someone do it. All you can do is offer opportunities, be there for them, invite them to attend one-on-ones, socials. I love Ian's book club idea. I think that's brilliant. And I think that's all you can do is be there for them and offer the opportunities. Can't really make someone take it up. And yeah, so I don't know what more you can do than that, really.
The other thing we're doing, Mark, is we're looking at, as part of getting people back from COVID, is actually looking at what their objectives are going forward. I think it's a good time while you are furloughed to reflect on what you want to do in the next few years of your life and what you want to get out of the next stage. So we're encouraging people to revisit their motivations, what their objectives are, and that helps get you in a forward frame of mind too, and looking to the future rather than sort of stuck in the current. I always also encourage people not to get too involved in media. I notice the more media I consume, the more downbeat I get, and I think it's actually getting the balance right. And I think sometimes it's very easy to get too swept up. I mean, I think that the BBC News always starts how many people have died, but they forget how many people die on a normal day of other things. And I personally think that we're getting dangerous of getting it out of balance between the 30,000 cancer patients who aren't getting treatment at the moment and the number of people who are dying. So we think we've really got to think about the next stage very carefully and get on the front foot as a country, as a business, and as individuals. And that's what we've got to get on and do.
The other thing I think is also, if you can involve, whether it's possible about getting back to work, what the focuses are, starting to have conversations about involving people in decision making about what's next for the business, so that might be a more pragmatic way of them starting to feel that they've got something to offer the business.
Yeah, I've got a question here. Will HMRC, it's interesting from what Ian said earlier on, but here is a question. Will HMRC consider access to email as potentially working? We were advised to cut off email and database connection. Tania, at APSCo, we have cut off email, but we communicate with people's personal emails, and most people have their own personal emails. And we have very active groups, WhatsApp groups, and we have regular meetings and a whole load of things. Is it safer legally, do you think, to not have people using work-oriented, work-owned emails?
I think the risk and why the lawyers are so cautious is because you don't know what's going on unless you're literally going to track people's activity on the emails day in, day out, which you're not. You don't know whether they're starting to work or not. And I think that's the risk, because HMRC were very clear that you can't work whilst on furlough. So I think there's just that balance of how much you can trust individuals to not overstep the mark from glancing at their emails to actually interacting with those emails, which is work and could fundamentally, if you were audited, I mean, it could risk the furlough payments. So I think that's why we've taken a bit of a risk-averse approach.
There you go. So Ian, it could be that your staff could use personal email addresses rather than the work email. I think there is a risk, and that risk is that if HMRC come at the end, they simply can ask back the furlough payments that they have paid you. And so that's the risk. But you know, I think that as long as it's not seen that people are working, what HMRC really wanted to do, and fair enough, actually, was make sure that people weren't having their staff working and generating revenue whilst the government were paying to keep them on. And that seems fair, it seems appropriate to me, and it doesn't sound like Hydrogen are doing anything that would endanger that, although you don't know 100%. Therein lies the risk.
Yeah, no, I'm a massive believer that you have to trust your staff, though. Otherwise, you know, and they know that risk and that they wouldn't want to do that. I have had people ask me what to do if I'm contacted by a client, etc., and they just said pass the name on. So, you know, it's I see the risk as very low when the government are trying to please 6 million individuals working, and I just think it's actually, we took the decision that actually as part of our policy of trying to treat people as humanely and fairly as possible, that cutting off their email was a bit like cutting off their left arm, and that they would feel excluded if we did that. So
I think fair enough.
But yeah.
Okay, let's have a look at what life is going to be like moving forward. Mark, let me come to you with Human. So it's a small business, it's in a specific niche and known in that niche very well. What are the plans? Have they changed? There was a view of internationalizing, a view of expanding the business. Has that view changed, or has it strengthened the view of what you're planning to do moving forward?
Yeah, no change to the plan apart from timescales, really. So, you know, maybe it'll take us a little longer to fully realize those plans, but no, the plan hasn't changed at all. And one thing which I love that I'm seeing across the industry is we as an industry seem to be getting very creative about how we're marketing and engaging with customers, both clients and candidates. So that's something we're really focused on is, you know, the thing that that you're offering today on this Q&A for APSCo members. I think recruitment, but we should all be doing this for our clients, our candidates, these kinds of things to help each other through this. So we can, yeah, definitely. One thing I've observed through my years in recruiting is that the recruitment industry, after any recession, always has gotten even bigger, and you know, the value of the industry is increased. So we just need to get through this painful bit.
Yeah. And do you think that companies can kind of market their way into a stronger position from this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, that's what I think could make the biggest difference to how well we come through this, is doing everything you can to position yourself as a trusted advisor and focus less on the sales and more on making a human connection, providing value added, you know, services and you know, expertise really to our clients. And hopefully that positioning, you'll be able to maintain that after the COVID-19.
Okay, Ian.
Yeah.
So look, you've come from that financial background, a bit of ancient history, but I know you well enough to know that you're a planned and an organized person. Has the sort of speed at which this crisis has hit the market, has it made you need to replan, dump all your growth plans, replan for something? And if so, what are the plans for a business on the scale, medium player you say, but on the scale of Hydrogen, how are you looking to strategize your way forward?
Yeah, so we were working to a plan up to 2022, which ironically was called Disrupt or Be Disrupted. We weren't expecting to be disrupted as much as we have been. And so as part of our sort of our view of what we're doing at the moment is looking at that plan again and saying, can we still achieve that plan? And if we can, what are the priorities now to achieve that? And if we can't, as Mark said, move timescales or change accordingly. But at the moment, I think it's too certain to actually have a fixed plan and timescale, because we don't know what shape the recovery is going to be. But I do think there will be opportunity, and it's actually really trying to focus on what your goals are and what you want to achieve, and then work backwards to what the priorities are now to actually get you out of this as quickly and effectively as possible.
Do you think you'll have a different way of working for your staff when we do sort of get back to whatever the new norm is?
Yeah,
do you think there'll be the same number of people in the office? Do you think?
Well, interestingly, I mean, we trialled flexible working last year under the banner of I own my own time, because going to Mark's earlier point that you can't motivate people who aren't motivated. I think when I started in recruitment, you only had one option when you sat at your desk, and that's pick up the phone or go and visit a client. What I suppose has become apparent more and more is actually people can sit at their desk and look busy, but they might be on Bet365 or something other, or they can be on the beach and they can be on to their best clients. So we trialled more flexible working and encouraged people to work more flexibly, and that was invaluable when we went into COVID to know how to operate and what worked and what didn't. And we trialled that in the UK, and that has gone down very well. So we are certain we don't want to come back exactly as we left COVID, and we want to look at how we can apply that elsewhere in the world, and also looking much more at understanding people's pipelines, their inputs and their outputs, and managing based on that, not to beat people over the head with a stick over it, but actually to coach them through what you need to do to be successful in this world. And it's a competitive world, low barriers to entry, so it's about making sure that if you're in it that you're learning, developing and moving forward. So we think there's a massive opportunity to actually enhance what we're doing and the way we're doing things coming out of COVID.
And do you think that would be the same from the UK as well as the other countries that you have a presence in?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the UK, and we've often had people who've worked for us from home and flexibly over the years, and sort of trialed it. But I think that model will grow and develop. And the world is vastly different now to when I first came to recruitment, and many of our clients work in that way, and the industries we're in are working differently from recruitment. So I think recruitment's actually behind much of the rest of the world in terms of the way it works, and actually because it is quite an output measured industry, it's actually one that's really well suited to actually having a flexible workforce. But for me, it all starts with people understanding what they're trying to achieve. So at some stages of your career, you might want to be the highest biller in the company. Another stage, your priority might be to earn a good living and have more time with your family, or you might be responsible for elderly parents, or lots of different situations. So I think the biggest problem happens when people aren't clear on what they're trying to achieve. So they expect to earn the most money humanly possible by doing the absolute least possible work is not going to work. So as long as you're honest and got clarity on what you're trying to achieve and what's an acceptable range of achievements, then I think that can work extremely well.
Okay, thank you for that. Can I just, as we come toward the end, may I just mention to everybody out there that this afternoon we have a session called Tomorrow's Manager with Mandy Green. Mandy's part of our training team, the talent development team at APSCo. She's going to cover how to analyse the impact of remote working on your current business practices and understanding the key skills, behaviours for effective and remote management, so it ties in with that. We also have on Thursday at 2 p.m, Preparing for the Future with John Rose. John Rose is somebody we know and love, actually. He's an NED of a number of businesses and hugely successful career within the recruitment market as MD and CEO of a number of big firms and smaller ones, actually. But he's looking at the current reality. Are you planning for the short and the long term? And how can you plan for that new normal? So we are very focused on those kind of things. And also on Wednesday, we have an In the Frame session that is specifically for the legal sector group, where we have 130 face-to-face meetings at APSCo in a year. Pretty obviously we've changed those. In the Frame is less broadcast oriented. It's a discussion group, particularly for those in the legal sector, and that's chaired by Kath Riley. And don't forget to have a look at that for tomorrow at 2 p.m. I would like to thank our 3 panel members, Tania, who's always there and understanding what's going on from a legislational point of view, and I would say is in the forefront of making sure that the government understand what the recruitment market needs. Sorry.
Can I just say as well, I'm going to take part in another webinar that we've just put in the diary with Squire Pack and Boggs next Monday, I think it is. And that is about unlocking the lockdown. So by that point, we may have more plans from the government.
Okay. And sorry, can you repeat when exactly that is?
Next Monday morning at the 11th. Not sure of the time.
Okay,
yeah, have a look on
please have a look there. Let me bring this to an end. I want to thank Mark Whitby from Human, but also as an NED and a coach for a number of other businesses. Thank you for your insights in really about the smaller market and the people side of what's going on. And to Ian Temple for a successful, well-known and well-respected business, Hydrogen Group, who have that insight both from the UK, but also internationally. I want to thank all of our 3 panel members. Thank you for a very insightful session, and to our audience for asking questions. My view as always, stay safe, stay focused, look after yourselves, your family, and the whole of your teams. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.